All right, gas prices are starting to move up, and who better to help us save money than Shahey of Mazvo Car Care? So let's head out live to Sit Crooked and Talk Straight with Shahey. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, Brad. How are you, good sir?
Well, I'll tell you, I was over in California, and I went to fill up the car to come back home, and it was $5, and you know I got a truck. So I was like, how am I going to make this gas last? And so I wish I talked to you before, because you have some great look. You're laughing at me. Don't laugh at me, Shahey. Don't laugh at me.
Sorry. sorry.
But let's talk, because I'm on an eating journey plan, but it's time to put my car on a diet?
Yeah, absolutely. What you need to do is make sure to understand how the dynamics of fuel saving starts, and that's with weight. Obviously, the car weighs what it weighs, but for every 100 pounds extra that you add is basically 1% of your fuel economy. So if you have 3 people in the vehicle, and now you've got 600 extra pounds, that's 6%. Not saying don't give anybody a ride, but that if you have extra bowling ball, realtors have signs, personal trainers have gym equipment, things like that that you want to send to Goodwill and donation, make sure you just clean out the car and only keep what's needed inside. That extra weight driving around isn't going to help at all.
Good. So I need to get all the bowling balls out of my car. Who's driving around with bowling balls in their car, Shahey?
I know of several people that belong to leagues, and that's what they do.
That's funny. So wait, before we move on to the next thing, you said something about weight. So I actually have my RV that I'll be pulling. So I got to really put that in consideration too?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And for every 18, now imagine if you fill up the fuel tank, every 18 gallons of fuel is 100 pounds. So if you really want to be a stickler and you know you don't drive very much, you can just keep it at a half a tank to save a little bit of weight, because that extra weight is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And over a course of a week or 2 weeks or a month, it makes a huge difference. Yes, your trailer that you're going to drag, absolutely.
And that's where you come up about avoid drag. So let's talk about avoid the drag, and that is what you're talking about right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And drag comes from having cargo equipment on top with your roof rack, things that are going to restrict while you're driving. So imagine you're going to California with the roof rack filled with luggage and boxes and cargo. That is putting drag. And at the same time, if you are like, wow, the weather is beautiful, why don't I just roll the windows down and turn off the AC? Those windows down is going to add up to 6%, between 4 and 6% of drag on your fuel economy, because the windows are down, because it's trying to slow the vehicle down with that obstruction.
I didn't know that, because I was so used to, like, when we were in the Midwest, the cab drivers would turn off the air conditioning and roll down the windows, But I didn't know that was where you don't even want to do that. So you're just going to be in a hot car in a way. All right, let's talk about don't
Not
idle.
for Arizona summers.
No, let's talk about don't idle, because this is interesting to me.
Yeah, idling is crucial, and everyone has that habit, of course. And let's just use the example of your favorite coffee shop or your favorite drive-thru. When you're in line and you've got 6, 7, 8 cars deep, and you're waiting, and you're like, no big deal, the AC's on, you're listening to your music, until your turn arrives, every 2 minutes that the vehicle sits idling, you're burning the fuel as if you've driven 1 mile. So imagine if you're in line for 15 minutes, and then do the math, divide that by 2, you're actually paying a lot more for that cup of coffee than you think you are.
Wow, I didn't realize that when you idle. So, interesting.
Yeah, and especially if you do it 2-3 times a week.
Yeah, or even during the day, going, breakfast, lunch,
Yes.
and dinner. People do. So, okay. This is something that we've always talked about, and you've always reminded me whenever I travel, and that is my tires and how to make sure they're properly inflated, because that plays a big part on saving gas, right?
Yes, absolutely, and I'll give it to you in a very quick, silly explanation. Imagine if you're going to jog and I hop on your back, you're not going to jog very fast because of that extra drag. So these tires, if they get deflated and they go down by 10 psi or 12 psi times 4, that's going to be up to 8% of your fuel economy. So it's basically like you trying to run with me on your back, and that's not going to happen very good. So filling up the tire to the proper temperature or psi, that's going to help the vehicle roll faster and give you better fuel economy.
So look at that. See, he's always giving me tips. And of course, as you like to conclude, this isn't rocket science, is it?
No, it's not. It's not rocket science. Basically, it's just making sure that you understand the basic fundamentals of the car, and that little bit that you do really does make a difference at the end of the month. If you're a go type of person and you're driving all the time, that 1% would seem silly. Add that by 30 days or 25 days, you could actually save a whole tank of gas by just being your own first line of defense.
I like it, and I know we got to wrap up, but I have to have one more question for you, and that should we be pulling a Kramer when we drive? Should we see how far we can go on that tank of gas, or is that bad for the car?
That's bad for the car because remember, I think we've discussed this before, the fuel tank, the fuel pump sits in the fuel tank. And so that fuel that surrounds the pump keeps it cool. So when you're low, the old school saying of always fill up when you get to a quarter, keep your tank always at half at minimum to help save the life of the fuel pump. Because when it overheats, it's always low. That's not good because running on fumes, eventually you'll end up buying a fuel pump that you don't need to.
There it is. I like it. I like sitting crooked and talking straight with Shahey of Mazvo Car Care. Shahey, thank you, man.
Thank you, good sir. Have a great one.
All right, there you go. Again, we sat crooked, we talked straight, and we're getting you those car tips for you. Thanks, Shahey.